Welcome to this week's episode of Campbell and Jones Meet the Monsters, the show where we chart the cinematic legacy of the classic monsters. I'm John Campbell. With me, as always, Brendan Jones.
John, I have a question for you. What do you get when a vampire bites the neck of a sentient doctoral thesis?
I think you might just get Abel Ferrara's as the addiction.
Bong. That's correct.
Yeah.
Wow. What is this, 95?
1995, indeed.
Look, we're going to talk about it. It's a short movie, and it's not interesting. But
I completely agree with the summation, not interesting.
Yes. But it's an odd one. We knew it was going to be an odd one. And
Yeah.
I did see it years ago. All I remembered were a lot of the guest star casting. Did remember.
Weirdly, this is one of those movies where even one scene characters like, oh, I know that guy.
Yeah, exactly. So I remembered that, and I remembered really liking the black and white photography, and that's still true. I thought
Agreed.
It was beautifully shot.
Agreed. I think we were talking around the fact I don't know that I can say I like this movie though.
Yeah, no.
It is the biggest thing I thought watching it yesterday is I'm going, man, 15-year-old me would have thought this was pretty deep. Like there was and that would have been right in my I had like an Abel Ferrara era where I was really into his stuff, and now I realize that like 33-year-old me is like, this is kind of pretentious, man. Like, this is not
oh no, this is crazy pretentious.
And I'm just going like and I'm just I've and this is not the only movie, but I've realized the older I get, the less I'm into these like it's an indie take on a thing. I'm just like, just tell me a story I can follow. But I used to be very much in there was a time I devoured Miss 45 and China Girl. All that.
Well, the thing that's generally true of Abel Ferrara is that he, and I have done my time with him as well.
Yeah.
He, at the very least, and he certainly is prone to pretension, but he's got these roots in genre and underground filmmaking to where, like, Miss 45 is still a baller, revenge flick.
Totally.
Not action, but it's that. It's an underground skeezy movie, and it's great to watch. And Bad Lieutenant, for all of its pretension, and Lord knows that's a pretentious movie.
Jesus,
it's still this gritty cop drama in a way.
I think that was thing when I'm talking about like high school me was like, ooh, he's doing genre stuff, but he's doing it artsy, and I'm just at this place in my life where I'm like, yeah, man, what's outside the Hollywood system,
Turns out, Harvey Keitel is there a lot.
And he's naked a lot.
And he's naked.
I will say the one that I still go back to and still really like is King of New York. I do think King of New
York is great.
It's a great, legitimately great gangster movie that I still, and it's just bleak and violent. And actually, I do think his Body Snatchers movie is underrated. It doesn't live up to the other two, but it is interesting.
I agree.
Yeah.
I agree. And I don't think of that one very often, but it is true that I didn't think it was terrible.
I think, once again, it was people just going like, well, when you compare it to the original and the Kaufman version, it's like, yeah, but don't. To a certain extent, you're like, of course. Those two... that may be one of the best examples of a movie and its remake. That may be the one in some ways. Like, what a great movie, and then a great remake of that movie. And then to even try it again. And the fact, I have also seen, though, like, the fucking Nicole Kidman version, which is horrible.
Oh, I never saw that one.
Oh, God, I went and saw it in the theater because of Daniel Craig, and that was their selling point, was he was Bond. And I think that was the thing where he shot that before he was Bond. And then he got Bond, and then they went back and reshot more scenes with him.
Oh, that's always
and then
good.
Released it to sell it, and it worked. It got me in there. But I will say, Abel Ferrara is a guy who I have not paid attention to his career in years, because I'm looking, he still makes tons of movies, and I don't see any of them. Not out of any rage or anything. It's just he's no longer really on my radar.
Yeah, I mean,
I'll hear about him here and there.
I'm always glad to hear that folks who have had their time as being auteur, artistic icon type directors, I'm glad that they keep going, whether or not I'm going with them. And that goes for bands too. Yep. Like, I'll be totally in love with a band for so long and they're groundbreaking, they're amazing, but sometimes they just keep going and I've stopped listening. And it doesn't, like Radiohead. I mean, for a long time Radiohead was God, and then then they just lost me, and I'm glad they're still around, and I'm sure they're just as experimental and that's crazy.
These aren't situations where you're like, oh God, it's just, you just kind of drift away from these people. It was I think, like with Abel Ferrara, it was like, for me, it was his movies hit me at the right time. And I may have seen this movie. I'm trying to go. I don't remember this, but there's a high likelihood this was on IFC sometime, and I watched it. Because I used to just leave. I was a pretentious little film nerd as a teenager, of course, and I would just leave the independent film channel on like all day and just watch whatever was on, or the Sundance channel, or what, any of those things where you're just going like, I used to watch. They would show.
You saw so many Whit Stillman movies.
Yeah, totally. Wim Wenders and stuff like that. Wenders. Yeah, all these guys. That was all like where I'm watching the and a lot of those movies I would not be able to sit through anymore. I just don't have the patience anymore for the experimental. Not so much. Here and there, I can occasionally put one on. But it used to be I would just watch those movies. And I would always be seeking them out. But now, especially in a world where there's so much TV, I'm like, even if I can get time to watch a movie, I is rare these days.
Well, I'm glad that you managed to make it through the 77 minutes that this movie runs.
I think it runs about that, roughly in that. I think it's
this
credited.
This is a short one.
I think IMDb says 82, but that doesn't clock in exactly.
I'll also say that was a wise choice, because this is just about as much of this non-plot as I could.
If this even hit 90, I would have couldn't have hacked it. Like, this really needed to, because I mean,
again, it's not bad, but the thing that I'm sure we'll be talking about is that there's not much plot, and so it becomes a character study. It becomes a lot of dialogue, and again, I'm not afraid of that.
No.
But one thing I cannot stand, and this goes for any filmmaker, is when you have everyone in this world is all sharing the same references and same level of intelligence, and then it becomes characters one-upping each other with quotations.
Yep.
And I'm sorry, if it's two people going, well, as Heidegger said, as Kierkegaard said, I'm like, stop it. As Sartre said, shut up. Okay, that's why I was making it's a doctoral thesis instead of a main character.
It is. It literally is. I mean, it's literally about that. And so, because of that, several times throughout the movie, I'm going, no, I get what you're saying. Like, I get it, man. I get the philosophical nature.
And also,
of the
you
movie.
could do the same things and make the same points without it becoming Roget's book of quotations or whatever. It's or Bartlett's, I guess.
Yeah.
But it is literally, you can have characters stating things.
Of course.
It doesn't have to be dumbed down, but at the same time, just it constantly being people stating what they've come upon, their philosophy, but through other philosophers, through quotes and stuff.
Right.
I'm like, why not just through like natural dialogue?
Well, there are times when they're not even saying, as this person said, and they're literally just speaking, and I'm going, are they just now saying quotes back and forth as if they're dialogue? Like,
yeah.
And there are times like that, and that, yes, that was grating.
There are no people in this movie.
No,
there are no people in this movie. These are props for, again, philosophy.
They're all ideas, and fine, you know.
Yeah, sure.
Like, if you want to do that,
there's some vampirism in there.
Yeah, there is, but of course, it's all in that thing where it's like it both is real and isn't real, or it is what you want it to be, but it's metaphorical, but also literal.
Yeah, it's metaphorical and literal. Can't you handle that, John?
I don't think
they're actually drinking blood, but at the same time they're shooting up. Don't you get it, man? It's about the drugs.
That's yeah. Is it
the addiction?
I didn't catch any of that. What are you talking about?
Yeah, I'm sorry. I should let you in on that before we.
No, and that's the thing about the movie. It is just kind of like that's why, like I'm saying, I was watching it last night, just going, yeah, I don't think I'm this guy, and like I said, there was a time I would have been way into this. But now I'm a little bit like, okay. I mean, and I think we all get there. It's the same thing. You bring up music, it's the same thing too. It's like, don't you get it, man? And now I'm the guy going like, I don't know. I just kind of like rock music or whatever. Like, it's fine. It doesn't have to be anything. When you know, it just doesn't. Not everything has to be super cool, man. And I will say, I was reading reviews of this from the time, as I often do. And a lot of the reviews are the kind of reviews I hate, where they're going like, oh, man, he eschews all the bullshit of horror movies, man.
Yeah, man.
And I'm just going like, but then there's always a part of me that's going, and even as pretentious as I got, I never, because I still loved Hollywood genre stuff. So anytime I see that, I'm just going like, well, I like horror movies. I don't know.
Well, one of the things...
Particularly horror, we've talked about this before. Critics are always so quick to go, right, isn't that stupid? As soon as I get an excuse, I can say, fucking vampire movies are dumb, man.
But the problem is that horror serves itself, just like most genres serve themselves. So if you are doing, and people have done it successfully, where they're doing a commentary on horror or a commentary on sci-fi tropes, they're twisting their... This is an alternative view of vampirism. That's not a bad thing. But you are bleeding, pun, you are bleeding the genre of the thing that people would want. You can do smart horror, and it doesn't have to be stupid.
And we've talked about a lot of movies that are that.
Yeah, but this is a thing where, and I will say, this movie does succeed because Abel Ferrara, like I said, he's got roots in some of the underground stuff.
Definitely.
There are some not horror moments, but there's some gruesomeness in this to where you're like, wow, okay, they're going there. But
which, once again, as like a teenage film nerd, it's like, it's pretentious and it's gory. Fuck yeah,
it is both. But the thing is that I will say, if you did come to this movie as strictly a horror fan, vampire fan, you're not going to get what you want.
No, it's got, I mean, aside from, yes, it has gruesomeness, but it does not deliver on any genre goods at all. And I was thinking that should be noted. So this is one of those tough ones when we get to the end of the show, and should you watch it? Oh, I would say very much depends on what you're looking for, because there is good stuff here. This is not like last week's movie, Embrace of the Vampire, where it's like completely ignore, has no point, adds nothing. There's interesting ideas in here. I don't think it really works as a feature film. I think this might have really worked. I might have really liked it as like a half-hour short.
It is walking that line where, as a short film, yes, I probably would have. And it is a short film, but it's not a short.
No.
But it would have worked better.
There's interesting ideas, but there's also long stretches where I was going, okay. And it's not, I mean, it's so short, and it never completely dragged to the point where I wanted to turn it off. Like, I did watch it in one sitting without any issue. But there were points where I'm going like, oh, Jesus. There were just so many points. And a lot of that is the non-vampire, just like, how much can, as much as I love both of them, how much can I watch Lily Taylor and Edie Falco just quote philosophy at each other in a coffee shop, and you're just going like,
as long as it's Edie DeFalco really wolfing down a burger.
there is that. I mean, some of that is that naturalism, right? That is like, people are really eating. This is real, man. And
well, it was also necessary because we're seeing Lily Taylor being disgusted by human appetite, and like, how can you eat that?
And also, a note that I have across all films, it needs more Christopher Walken, because I will say, when he shows up, it is like, ooh, there's an injection of some energy. Oh, he's gone.
Yeah.
And also I'm going, man, I was thinking back, is this the only time he plays a vampire? Because that's a shame. The guy makes a great vampire.
He really does. I will say that scene is one of the best written in it.
Yes.
I do like the trivia, which I didn't know, but the trivia that he picked that character just based on reading the script, not knowing it was meant to be a female character.
Oh.
And it was supposed to be swapped. In other words, Annabella Sciorra was supposed to be that character. And Abel Ferrara wanted our buddy, Mr. Walken, to play Casanova, the vampire that turns her at the very beginning.
It's so much more interesting the other way.
It really is, actually. It worked out very well, I think.
Yeah. Well, because one of the things I like is that it is a female vampire that turns her, but it's not the hunger, sexy lesbian vampires. It is still just, I mean, you can get, there's still plenty of sexuality to this, but in this disturbing, ferocious sort of, animalistic way.
I did like that scene too, just because it starts off and you're like, okay, of course a vampire is in an elegant formal gown walking down the streets of New York, and then approaches this doctoral student and just casual talk, and then literally throwing her. That was pretty harsh, throwing her into like that railing, like bam, and then shoving her down into that little thing down the stairwell and approaching her.
Ferrera's skill at violence is always, it is very real and in your face and sudden and intense.
Yes, and then the whole thing, which becomes the recurring refrain, every vampire asking their victims like to tell me to go away, but really mean it. And that's an interesting thing of like
stuff, man.
A twist on they have to be invited, but in this case, it's not about crossing a physical threshold. It's a moral and emotional and intellectual one. It's like, you have to tell me you don't want this, which is also a drug metaphor. Like, you have to really mean it.
If this movie backed off the pretension just a little bit, I think
I
really would have liked it. I think because there's and I agree.
Also, the performances are great.
Well, I mean, an amazing cast of people. A lot of my favorite actors, really. Like I think we talked a little bit about this. I can't remember if that was on mic or not, but I've always loved Lily Taylor. I just think she's
me too.
amazing.
And this is actually. And this is unfair to her. She's an odd-looking woman, and I don't mean that in any other way than aesthetically.
I mean, she's and I always say this in this, like in the Hollywood sense, yes, but a compelling figure because she doesn't look like other people on screen.
And in this film, because of course the black and white photography, and also her transformation from being just normal college girl college woman, into being a vampire. I'm not sure she's looked better on film. She is a ferociously attractive person in this movie. And again, you're right about the fact that she's crazy compelling. And she gets so many notes to play in this.
We saw this last week with, I think it's interesting to compare objectively terrible movie like Embrace of the Vampire. But it's interesting when you say that, because she's not suddenly like, I'm sexy bad girl. It's all, it's subtle design, like costume work, and it's mostly in her performance. Yes, I think a big reason why I wasn't ever completely turned off by the movie was her performance. And Lily Taylor and the cinematography are the MVPs here, because also I was always compelled by New York at night in black and white. It's beautifully photographed. That's the other thing too, where I wish I liked the movie more, because aesthetically I'm like, I am so on board for what you're doing here, Abel Ferrara, and I want to like this movie more than I do. I think this is an interesting experiment that doesn't fully work, but there are pieces in here where I'm going like, yeah, man, that is some great stuff right there. And then we're talking about, blah 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 is so and so road, as Beckett says, and I'm like, who fucking cares, man? And not that there's not validity to that stuff. I will say I do think it's interesting that this movie, we talked about how Embrace of the Vampire was shot in like 14 days. The fact this movie shot in 20 days. I just like that this movie actually shot longer than that and probably cost less.
Totally.
But it's just so much more interesting.
Even with the high-end actors in it, like Christopher Walken, that they're taking a cut and they're working cheaper because this
Walken's in a a lot of Abel Ferrara's movies.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah.
King of New York, as you say, is one of the best, and he's amazing in that.
That is his. I mean, that is as close to an epic as you're gonna get from Abel Ferrara. Like that really is like, by his standards, big in scope. King of New York.
Yeah, I guess that Body Snatchers movie is also probably the only other time he went big.
Yeah, and that was like a studio
This is not
movie.
a story about 3 people, or whatever, or a small little circle.
Yeah,
it's this huge story.
I'm looking at what he's doing now. Like I said, I don't see, but he seems to really he's really taken to Willem Dafoe. Seems to be his main guy these days, which
that's a good choice too.
Kind of makes sense, but he's got He's always talking about religion, isn't he? Because he's got something with Shia LaBeouf about the Catholic Church. Yeah. He's
always. It's all about Catholic guilt and redemption. It's his.
Man, I really, because I didn't notice any of that in this movie.
His Catholic, roots are very deep, and strangely, because knowing his backstory, he famously was a heroin addict for a long time and came out of it. I think that he's always struggling with the idea of sin and redemption, and that is in every one of his movies.
Well,
and if you're watching Abel Ferrara, there will be a priest, or there will be a nun, there will be some Catholic figure somewhere in there.
That is the thing, though, with him, when you talk about him actually coming from being a heroin addict, stuff like that. That is the stuff that does always work in his movies, and this does as well. Just this evocative. He's not being gritty. He's telling legitimately real gritty stories.
He's really not glamorizing it at all.
No,
which
he's
of
not.
Course is
he's
great.
not. It's so interesting because they do talk about, and I did know this, he's very close friends with Michael Mann, who is the total opposite of it's all gloss style. His criminals are cool as fuck, man. So it is interesting there, and I do see some of his more mainstream stuff. He did direct some Miami Vice, Abel Ferrara, which I had forgotten about, but which is interesting to think about him on that show, and some Crime Story as well, which I any chance I get to talk about the underrated Crime Story. I'm
Agreed. Great show.
Let's talk about this poster that is very much indicative of the whole movie too, as well. It is just sort of a blurry-ish, kind of out of focus Lily Taylor with some she's overlaid some book, like a page of a book, right?
Yeah.
And she's got the sunglasses on. But it's interesting, look at what they're selling this movie on. Abel Ferrara. He's already a known quantity at this point, of course.
Well, literally, I mean, King of New York was a critical success, and it probably did for his stuff. Pretty big box office.
And certainly, I know it's
Bad Lieutenant was the thing.
Bad Lieutenant. I was gonna say, King of New York is also one of those movies that like everyone owned a copy of too. Like I don't know any film fan that didn't have that in the collection.
I had it.
yeah, of course. I mean, I think I've had it on almost every format. I've got the Arrow 4K of it now. Like,
ooh, very nice.
Yeah, and I think that's the only movie of his I own still. Like I said, that's the only one I really go back to. Even this, like I don't find I want to watch Bad Lieutenant even if I like it.
Yeah, I think that I've seen it twice. I think I'm good.
It's another one of those. A lot of Abel Ferrara is like, even, and I respect the guy, but I am going like, I get it. I get it.
I get it.
Yeah.
Well, it's not. I don't want to live in that world.
Yeah.
It's like, okay, I visited it and I'm good. Just like the movie Happiness. Very glad I saw it. Actually, really amazing film with some amazing performances. I never want to watch that again.
I have so much of the same feelings about Salons too as I do about Abel Ferrara. They're different filmmakers, but similar in this. If you had talked to me 15-year-old me, I would have talked about Abel Ferrara, I would have talked about Todd Solondz. And the guy who I still do follow, and we'll talk about later, is Jarmusch. I was a big Jarmusch guy, too.
Jarmusch is amazing, but Jarmusch also, even when he's dark, I never feel dirty after Jarmusch.
That's the thing, where it's like, there's a reason I've stuck with his movies. And actually, some of his movies, like, did you see Patterson?
Yeah, I saw Patterson.
But, I mean, that's gentle in a way that the other guys aren't. Like, everything else is like a slog. And then he'll make
they're all different people with different stuff.
Yeah.
And even David Lynch can do a straight story. And it's like that guy.
And I'll still talk about Lynch. Lynch is still one of my guys.
Lynch, I'll watch anything he does, even though, again, some things like Inland Empire, I go, okay, I did it. I did it. I don't think I need to watch that again.
Inland Empire
Not because it was too much.
Inland Empire, that is really like, how far will you follow me? Yeah. Like you guys are fans of mine. How far will you take it? And I'm going, you got one viewing in me, man.
Yeah.
But I do love him. But yes, I do think there's a spectrum of these, but they're all sort of the same kind of era, and they're all contemporaries of each other. But I do think Ferrera and Solondz are both punishing sometimes.
Oh, yeah. I mean, I get that, cinema should be challenging. I mean, there should be filmmakers who, the stories they want to tell are meant to disturb you, meant to make you feel unnerved. And when they are successful, good job.
And
is that something I want to revisit? No.
And I will also say, the older I get, the more I find I have not no interest, but I have less time. Now I'm like, I'll do like 2 or 3 difficult movies a year. That's what I've got in me. And I am like, give me more Marvel shit. Like that's
you know what? I've had food poisoning several times in my life, and every time I go, you know what? I could do with never having this again.
That is sort of the thing where it's like, oftentimes now I'll go like, oh yeah, no, I need to see that critically acclaimed indie movie that's 3 hours long and about the dregs of society, and then I just won't get to it. Whereas I used to like, just, oh my God, it was all dark shit all the time. If I wasn't, I mean, there's a period of time when I was almost exclusively watching movies about heroin addicts. It felt like, like,
look, that's called your 20s, and you made it.
Yeah, where it is like, that was when I would do. Aronofsky was a guy. There was talking about Radiohead. I had a Radiohead kind of like fandom of where I was all about Aronofsky, and then I don't even know if I saw his last couple movies, because it's just kind of like, once he's doing Mother and stuff like that, I'm going like, dude, now you're just fucking with people. Like, I am excited about The Whale, which will have long come out by the time people are hearing this, but I can't wait to see the new one.
Yeah, sure, me too.
Yeah,
but again, he's not a one that I sit there unless one of his projects rises to the surface.
Yeah,
then I'm like, yeah, I'm all right.
But I do think 20-something me thought The Fountain was very insightful, and now
did you buy the graphic novels?
I think I did. Yeah, I did have the graphic novel, and I was all in. And now I think if I even just thinking about it, and I haven't revisited, but even thinking about it, I'm like, fuck that movie, man. That movie doesn't make any sense.
Oh man.
Well,
okay.
Anyway, yeah,
back to the addiction.
But yes, and I watched the trailer for this, which doesn't in any way indicate what the movie's about. It doesn't have it doesn't lead with it's just going, from Abel Ferrara, the director of King of New York and Bad Lieutenant. And it's just like, comes another view of urban life. It's all just going, it is in no way selling it as a genre piece.
I know. They I think purposefully kind of ducked that because they wanted to surprise people, maybe. Mm-hmm. I guess I'm looking at the trailer were just expecting another Abel Ferrara like junkie movie, then you're like, wait a minute, are they drinking blood?
I was gonna say it's that, but also if you're expecting another Abel Ferrara junkie movie, you also still kind of get one. Basically,
you do.
Yeah.
Do.
I mean,
her coming down scenes, man, that's rough. Just like staggering around covered in blood.
Not only
bystanders trying to help her, and
is she great, but the fucking commitment emotionally, physically to this part. Heck. That scene where she is just flipping shit in that closet, going like, I'm not gonna do it.
After she meets the guy she can't tempt, after she meets the guy who is Michael Imperioli for half a second, the good, Catholic guy, the young priest on the street handing out pamphlets, she can't turn him, and she is the representation of sin.
Yep.
So the whole thing where she goes, I will not submit, and she's in the closet, and she's just rending her clothes and pulling shit down, and you're like, good Lord. She probably broke a bone or something the way she's contorted.
That's the kind of scene where I'm going, I'm not like digging this movie, but fuck, Lily Taylor is just, I'm going, that is just in isolation, I'm going, God damn you. Yep. And by the way, I just went to her very first on-screen credit. She played a waitress in an episode of Crime Story.
Oh, very nice.
I think because that shot in Chicago. Because you look at a lot of her stuff is she came from Chicago theater, right? You know, so it's like I think
Steppenwolf.
Yeah, like she's having a baby. She's in, which I think was a Chicago.
Well, of course,
she
John Hughes. Showed up and say anything because
that's
probably Cusack is like, yeah, get Lily in here.
Well, and he uses her again in High Fidelity. He's worked with her a lot, obviously.
Yeah.
Because I think that all those people are buddies. But Say Anything is definitely where I and most people were like, oh, who's this? Because she's so fucking funny in that movie. I've written 120 songs about Joe, and I'm gonna play them all tonight.
I love that. It is so great.
Joe lies when he cries. And then I think we might have talked about this before, but when you meet Joe and he's just such a like, hey.
Yes. Yeah.
Like, that's the guy she's talking about? That guy's an idiot.
You're the guy that's inspired. She's like, she's written 100 songs about you, man, and they're all about pain.
Yeah, I do. Yeah, when Cusack just lays into him, it's like, what are you doing, man? But then, I mean, you could not be, like I said, like a 90s kind of indie film fan and not be a fan of hers. Her and Parker Posey were the darlings of that kind of era, I feel like. Yeah. And I loved both of them, and still do.
Yeah.
Both of them so much.
They're still great.
Yeah. But once again, I was a weird, film nerd kid, so I'm like, my celebrity crushes, Lily Taylor and Parker Posey.
There you go.
Yeah, that's the kind of anyone like that. So, but it's interesting. I was just watching. And now I'm just talking about Lily Taylor, but I was just watching. I rewatched Ransom, the Ron Howard movie with Mel Gibson.
Oh yeah,
she's amazing in that as a really villainous character. She's the one who kidnaps the kid in that.
Yeah,
and she's got like a psychosexual relationship with Gary Sinise, who's a cop who loves her, but is also like holding her crimes against her to get her to go along with. Great, man. That's the kind of thing I'm talking about. Even when she's in like studio stock thriller like that, and that's I really like that movie, but it is a capital, S studio movie.
She's good in everything.
Yeah.
Can we just say it? Yeah. I mean, I just watched that series that I can't even remember the name of.
Outer Range with Josh
Thank
Brolin.
You.
Yep.
Thank you. Outer Range, which I liked.
I did
too. But really, you're just sitting there going, how am I going to accept Lily Taylor's being like a ranch wife because she is as East Coast New York as you can get, or Chicago. That's true. And she's great.
Yep.
She pulls it off. You're like, yeah, I buy it totally. You and Brolin have been happily married for years.
Yeah.
She's great.
Yeah.
He was great in that bad supernatural TV show, the werewolves.
Oh, wait, what was
something hollow? No.
Oh, is it Hollow Pines?
Something
was
like
it
that?
Something along those lines.
It was named after the place, and it was a sort of Twin Peaks-ish thing, but there were werewolves.
Yeah, it was bad, but I watched because it was werewolf. Hemlock Grove.
Hemlock Grove.
I think whatever I said was also one too. She's in an episode she's in one episode of Gotham that I distinctly remember standing out because she and Frank Whaley are the villains in it. And you're going like,
oh, interesting.
That's pretty good talent for Gotham. Well, Gotham was one of the few shows that shot in New York, so you do get a lot of people going like, oh, well, we're doing a Broadway show and we need to be somewhere during the day.
I will say that
we'll fight Jim Gordon.
I don't even know if, because I didn't see that episode, I don't even know if they cross paths, but I would watch anything with Donal Logue and Lily Taylor.
Yeah.
I mean, talk about, these are people that are always above the material they're doing.
Totally. Well, I mean, we talked about...
I watched Grounded for Life, and it was a delightful sitcom, but I kept thinking, Donal Logue, man, what are you doing?
I know. I did enjoy that show as well, mostly because of him.
Kevin
Corrigan.
Kevin Corrigan, yeah.
Well, yeah. Great. They brought an edge to that's not normal on network TV. It's sort of like, ooh, this is what happens when you put like indie film people in a network sitcom. And we talked about how much we really liked her on Perry Mason recently, and look, she's amazing, always has been. She'll crush even if it's not a good thing.
Even if it's her saying, well, as Sartre once said. Anyway, so
that
back
adds
to the story.
why she works in this, though, too, is when you talk about her look and stuff like that, she comes off as somebody who
totally.
When you talk about, I mean, she can become the ranching wife, but here you're going like, oh, yeah. She does read as East Coast educated, because that's why I had to be reminded she starred in Chicago, because I do kind of think of her as a New York actress.
She seems that way. Again, I'm going to shout out I Shot Andy Warhol.
Oh,
there's so many of her performances you can just sit there and go watch this instead. Go watch this.
This is not, I mean,
she's good here too.
She's
and
great.
You're in 75 minutes, you're out. It's not a big deal.
But
it's just not a great movie. But she's amazing in it.
And there are tons of other examples of stuff that she's
amazing
in.
She's playing Kathy or Catherine. Who is attending New York University.
Kathleen.
She is a philosophy doctoral major. She is friends with Edie Falco, and it's so interesting seeing them this young.
Yeah.
I mean, 95. I mean, Edie Falco is probably already in her 30s, but she just looks younger than I've seen her before. I'm like, wow, Edie Falco.
Also, I mean, Edie Falco is another amazing actress who's done many great things, but always, anytime she's not New Jersey mob wife, there's always a slight Carmela Soprano is a million miles away from what her actual look and personality is like.
That's correct.
But this whole movie screams, when you talk about them, this whole movie screams New York actors.
Oh, yeah.
Because because they go like, and Annabelle Sciorra as well, they talk about her and Imperioli and Falco. They all end up on The Sopranos eventually. And I'm going like, I think that's coincidental. I don't think like David Chase loved this. I think it was just like those are the great actors that were around the scene.
That were around. And Imperioli was dating Lily Taylor at the time and apparently took that part just because he was always hanging around set. And they're like, you want to play that one? Okay, sure.
Yeah. And it is sort of, because I did think that. It was another thing where I'm going like, oh, that's a waste. I know how fucking great an actor that guy is.
Oh, man, White Lotus this season. I'm loving him.
That guy.
It's good to see him back. Good to see him back.
I know. He's another guy.
And F. Murray Abraham is ruling. I'm sorry. Again, we're veering
Well,
away
White Lotus
again.
is amazing, but Imperioli's another guy like Lily Taylor where it's like, well, if he's in it, he'll be doing something good. Even if it's... And Edie Falco, too, actually. All of these people, you've got a bunch of just...
There's no problem with this cast.
No, and that's another thing. That's another thing. I think this movie, in some ways, reads better than it is because the pieces in it are really good. You have this cast of people who almost everyone in it is somebody I would watch in anything. I will watch Christopher Walken in anything, you know?
Yeah.
He's just even when he's doing fucking wacky grandpa movies, man.
He's still going to give you a read that's unlike anybody else.
That's the thing, man. And I think that's the other thing. Not only are these great actors, these are all unique actors. That is something Abel Ferrara, being sort of outside of Hollywood, has always picked like, ooh, interesting people. I see why he has gravitated to Defoe so much lately, of course, too, because that guy is as far out there as you get.
Yeah.
And a guy who weirdly walks... It can be in massive stuff, can be in tiny stuff. And Walken's kind of that same way.
Totally that same way.
I mean, it's not that long ago. He's fucking Max Schreck in Batman Returns when he's doing this.
I know. So, back to the plot.
Back to the plot. I mean, here's the thing. So, I always take notes on these movies so I can keep the plot straight. But a lot of the notes are like, she meets this person. They talk about the nature of evil. Like, it is sort of like that's what a lot of the notes are. So like the movie starts with Lily Taylor and Edie Falco watching a presentation about war crimes in Vietnam.
A lot of the reviews that I looked at some reviews. A lot of the professional reviews, they're always willing to give it up for Abel Ferrara's artistic filmmaking. They're all agreeing like, wow, this is a stark and interesting movie.
Yep.
But some of them, the ones that had the major problem with it, not too many of them are like us getting like, the pretension level is so fucking high. But many of them were saying, this is going too far. Is that this tying into, because a lot of it is about they get later, it's like people aren't sinners because they sin. They're sinners. They sin because they are already sinners. So it's like original sin. It's getting into the idea that man is inherently has evil built in, and there's no mystery to why things like this happen. So in order to underscore that, and I kept thinking of Annie Hall and the whole idea of Alvy Singer constantly going to see the sorrow and the pity and things like that, and Annie going, can we watch a movie that isn't like a 9-hour documentary about the Holocaust? But apparently for fun, Catherine and her buddy Edie Falco watch, I'm sure it's for class, but they're watching it's footage of the My Lai massacre from the Vietnam War, and we're going to see Bosnian atrocities later on, and there's a lot of real footage of horrible,
which is
Holocaust like bodies.
But this is where the pretension is kind of like is outreaching his grasp a little bit, when you're going like, yeah, I'm not 100% seeing the connection here. I get where you're talking about sin and original evil, but you're like, massive war crimes, vampirism. This is not a perfect one-to-one metaphor, Abel. Like, it's not, I kind of get where you're going, and the inherently corrupt souls, and I guess the idea that the vampirism just sort of freeze the violence inside or whatever, right? That's already there. It's not.
I don't think that is what he's getting at.
Oh, interesting.
That's become one of those coffee chats.
No, I was gonna say, because like, to me, the whole movie was about this whole idea about like, we all are wanting to do this, and now they're free to do it because we're gonna. And so, like, I guess once the door is open,
vampirism,
it's walking. Of course,
dropping the veil of hypocrisy and saying we are just these animals, evil, lusting.
Yeah.
Because we have to feed.
There is no physical transformation, right? There aren't fangs. There aren't things like that. So it is a spiritual or moral degradation of the look at, I don't want to talk like this. Abel Ferrara is making me talk like this, folks. But also the movie is obtuse enough, as you're saying, and stark enough that you can kind of read whatever you want into it. But I think there are times when I think he's got something, and then there are times where I'm going, yeah, I don't follow, man. And the atrocity stuff is where I'm going, yeah, man, I don't know.
No, it's just that is the real horror in a horror movie that's about quasi vampirism / drug abuse.
The addiction
and then you're like,
metaphor works.
Did we need
more.
This real world underscore?
Well, 'cause
not really.
It's a hat on a hat kind of thing too, where I'm going like,
hat on a hat.
You got it with the addiction metaphor. That's good. Then when you get to like mass levels of atrocity, I'm going like, now I kind of don't know what you're saying a little bit. Like,
but essentially they're just students. They walk out and they're like, hey, what are you doing this weekend? I'm doing this. Okay, whatever. It's all very banal.
Made me laugh because they're arguing about like, was it really fair that one man took the brunt for this when everybody did?
Oh, yeah.
And they're going back and forth, and then it's finally just like, hey, what are you doing tomorrow?
It actually was very good. It's sort of like, well, if you're talking about war crimes, who gave them the guns? Who's flying those bombers? They killed a lot more women and children. What are you doing this weekend?
Yeah. Oh, I got to go see my brother or whatever. It's just like, I mean, that is that is college, right? Like, that is the academic thing where it's like, we can do this, and then as soon as you enter philosophy class, you're like, I got to get a sandwich.
It's like very deep conversations followed by, you gonna finish that Pop-Tart?
Yeah. Yeah, exactly.
But so they break break off, and Lily Taylor, I mean, this is instantaneous pretty much.
It has to be, right? There's not much movie here, so she has to get turned. And Annabelle Sciorra shows up as the vampire Casanova, which is interesting. I love that once again, I don't know that this movie has things to say about gender specifically, but they've entered an interesting thing by making this a female vampire and by keeping the male, romantic Casanova name. So there's something there.
There is something there, but she basically, as we said, she it's small talk at the beginning, like "what a lovely night" or something like that, and Lily Taylor's like, "Sure, yeah," and then basically Annabelle Sciorra forces her down into this basement-ish staircase, and does get right up in her face and says, "Tell me to go away like you really mean it, and I will. And Lily Taylor never really does. She just says, please don't do this. And
Yeah.
so she doesn't get the answer. I guess she's waiting for her. So Annabella Sciorra then bites her in the neck, and she just bites her. She chomps down, and blood starts running. And then this was odd, and I would love to talk to the screenwriter, but not for too long, because I bet it would go on forever.
Yeah.
But then Annabella Sciorra backs up with the blood on her mouth, and she goes, collaborator.
Yeah.
I was like, what?
By the way, we didn't talk about this. Nicholas St. John is the screenwriter, and if you look at his career, he's
worked with Abel Ferrara.
He's only written movies directed by Abel Ferrara.
Yeah.
That's it.
So basically, yeah, she's been attacked, and Annabella Sciorra just sort of mocks her, and Lily Taylor's like, what have you done to me? And she goes, oh, you'll find out.
Because in Abel Ferrara fashion, and in what is actual good horror imagery, is this is just pouring blood out of her throat, and I feel like there she is, she's talking to the cops as they're bandaging up, and there's just the thing I just remember is the cop just goes, hey, consider yourself lucky she didn't tear your whole throat out. It's almost just like, hey, that's New York, baby.
Consider yourself lucky she just cut your throat.
Yeah. Hey, shit happens. Basically just going like, nothing we can do, just be glad you're alive. God, all right. Anyway,
she's all bandaged up. She goes home. She looks at the wound. She's like, and
then we get a lot of her laying on the ground going,
yeah. She's not feeling so good.
No, and I did think when the movie started, I'm going, I kind of like this approach to like, okay, here's the grounded, gritty, like, okay, this is probably what it would be like to be a vampire, like.
Possibly.
I mean, sure. Like, if you're going to it, but just treat it in this very matter-of-fact, in this case, I stripping away the genre convention, just going, here's a person, they are bitten, and there's a transformation happening, and certainly it is sort of got the drug withdrawal sort of things to it as well.
Right.
But it is one of these things, once again, where I'm going, yeah, okay. It's just like, maybe cut this down a little bit. This is one of those things where I'm going, this is like a 78-minute movie that I think could get down to a nice 35, because there's just a lot of like, it's a lot, and it's a lot of Lily Taylor going, oh God, and I'm also going, oh my God, this is so 1995 indie movie.
Very much so.
Very much so. Yeah, it's just like, that's the thing. This would not have been that strange then if you were seeing movies at an art house theater in New York. It would have been like, this is pretty par for the course.
And it was also, again, released around the same time that Nadia was. And I guess we're not doing Nadia, but...
Oh, yeah. I think we talked about doing... Are we doing Nadia? I don't think we are.
I literally think they were released like the same month.
Yeah,
if it's not the next one, we're not doing it.
Yeah,
but Nadia,
I think we've done. I think maybe our attitude was we're gonna do this, and
Yeah, Nadia is another indie vampire movie, only not as self-serious. It's actually slightly campy, if I remember correctly. But the lead actress is a beautiful Romanian woman who didn't do a lot of movies, but I've always been very drawn to her. I remember watching it. It didn't leave much of an impression other than, oh, she's very lovely.
Yeah. I think maybe that was the attitude as we went with this instead of that.
And because, I really just needed to hear some philosophers bandied about. So I'm glad we did this one. And yeah.
Although that one is more specifically, I'm looking at it going, Peter Fonda is literally credited as Dracula. There is a Renfield, like there.
Yeah.
But I do also remember seeing that and thinking it was boring. So, we can't be exhaustive on this show. You get one weird black and white vampire movie.
You got the one.
Yeah. So she goes. We see her in class. This is where we see this guy. Her professor is one of those actors you've seen, Paul Calderon. You've seen this guy in a million things, and you look at he's in like every. Oh shit, he's on Bosch. I was gonna say. All right, I'm going like, yeah, he's one of the other cops on Bosch. That's all right. He's one of the cops that's not Bosch.
He's a very reliable New York actor guy. Again, like you said, you've seen him in a million things, and I'm sure he works on stage a lot.
He does, but he's also in like everything in this era. I'm looking at. He's also in King of New York. He's in Pulp Fiction. He's in Four Rooms. He's in like a lot of these mid '90s. I do feel like was Pulp Fiction kind of a turning point? I mean, I guess it was a little bit before this, but that's sort of like, to me, is like, oh right, these can also be kind of fun, these indie movies.
Certainly it was the thinking man's genre picture again, where it's like, oh, it can be all things to all people.
That was
great.
a legit financial hit, because it's like, oh
yeah,
it's clearly made by somebody in the same class as these other guys, but is like also going like, oh yeah, it's also okay to like get some laughs and please an audience too.
Right.
Which,
imagine that.
Yeah, who knew? So she runs out. He's giving a lecture, and she runs out of this class, and she's vomiting blood in the bathroom.
Yeah,
that's bad.
It's not good,
folks. It's not good. And they take her.
But this is her. Calderon is her professor.
He's
and
credited only as professor too.
Yeah, they've clearly had a relationship. I was sitting there going, "Oh, I wish this weren't such a trope," but it always is. It's like, dude, if it's a youngish professor, and sometimes not even then, and the brilliant student, they're probably sleeping together. Yep. So, it's like, hey, will we meet up later? Sure. So they've set this thing up. But she goes off and she vomits.
She vomits up the blood, and then she goes to the hospital, and they're like, well, everything seems fine. We don't know what happened to you.
Yeah. Maybe they said, I think maybe you had you're probably have anemia and you didn't know it, and something is that wound you got exacerbated your anemia,
whatever. Anyway, but so, this is where, she's not interested in food when she's having lunch with Edie Falco, who is scarfing down a burger.
Yep. And the thing is that Lily Taylor's just barely picking at a salad. Yeah. And she's clearly lost her hunger for food.
Yeah. But then when she's on the way home, then she sees a passed out homeless guy, and she's kind of like, looking around, anybody around? And then we don't know where or how she got this syringe, but she's got one now, and she just...
Oh, I'm assuming that the guy passed out was a junkie. She probably used one of his syringes.
Oh, that would make sense. There. Yeah, but it's just, we see her inject the thing, and it's an Abel Ferrara movie, so of course we got to get a close-up of needle going into skin.
She withdraws blood in a hypodermic, so she's not to the point of biting throats yet, but she goes home. I understand. And she shoots up with the junkie's blood.
I understand that is a very on-the-nose junkie thing, but I actually kind of like that in Vampire, where it's just like, I need that blood in me, but I'm not yet biting throats. I kind of like that there's an escalation to it.
Yeah.
Even though, once again, of course, it's Abel Ferrara and it's needles in the streets and stuff like that, you know.
Yeah.
Yeah. I've seen your other movies, man. Let me guess. Everybody's miserable and on drugs.
I'm hip to your jive.
Yeah. I think that's maybe a little bit why I don't watch some of his. I get it. Everybody's upset and on drugs. Okay. Also, famously prickly dude too. Abel Ferrara has some legendarily.
Oh, really?
Where is it? It's either on Letterman or Conan. I can't remember. Where he's just a total asshole.
Great.
Yeah, because he is. I mean, because the whole thing is like, it's network TV talk show, man. You know, he's too hip for whatever. It was Conan because
I'm not your dancing monkey, man.
Because when Willem Dafoe was on Conan's podcast, he apologized for his friend Abel Ferrara, who in like 1994, maybe promoting this movie, or I don't know, I saw one of his movies, was like it was just sort of thing where it's like, I'm not going to ask your questions. I'm not going to tell the anecdote, you know.
Wow.
Whatever. What do you
a delight.
Know? Yeah,
what a delight.
That's that thing I hate, where it is like, I'm such an artist, I'm not going to play your game. It's like, well, how about you just be, you know, how about you just generally be nice? Yeah. I mean, sure, you can think it's stupid. That's fine. But, you know, it's, and it is, and you know how Conan is, and he is just going like, hey, great, man.
Yeah.
Okay, you got a movie, huh? Jesus Christ. So she goes home, injects the blood, and now next we see her, she's back in class, she's got the shades on, and she's like,
yep.
Hey, sorry I was weird yesterday.
Yeah. Now I'm totally fine.
And she basically, from here on out, has this, like, she's just above everything in her performance, is the sort of thing. She's like, because it is like when the professor goes, do you still want to meet tonight at 7? She's like, yeah.
Yeah, the thing is that she is, I'm going to say it. Mm-hmm. She's too cool for school.
She is, with those fucking It is. I love that.
Becoming a vampire apparently doesn't only give you super strength, the ability, you know, obviously to kind of hypnotize people, drink blood. It also gives you a heightened level of aloofness and pretension. That also comes with it.
It is a very Abel Ferrara take on vampires, which visually just means now they wear cool sunglasses.
Yeah,
very 90s.
And they don't like the sun. It's true, they don't like it.
They don't like that sun, and I mean, we will eventually get to her doing almost all of the things you mentioned. She will have super strength. She will not like the sun. I don't think she hypnotizes anyone.
Well, with everybody, she'll do the kind of it's not true hypnotism, but the whole thing of like, when they go on the date, she goes on the date with the professor here in a second.
They're a little bit paralyzed by her, right? Like,
yeah, and she's being completely
my favorite line in the movie is when she goes, "Do you want to come into my apartment?" He goes, "Well, this hasn't exactly been an enjoyable evening."
Yeah, and then she's
like, I love that line. Because we see him in the coffee shop, he just goes, "Hey, are you gonna say anything?" Because
she's just say anything.
It's dark out. She's wearing sunglasses and she's just staring off.
They're listening
distance.
To a cellist, and she goes, "Kind of sad music, isn't it?"
Yeah.
You're like, wow, what a delight you are.
Yeah, Jesus Christ.
But
man.
then she basically bats her eyes at him when she goes, "Come on.
Yeah.
I promise you a good time."
Yeah.
So then he's like, "All right, sex." And they go in there, and
if I have to, I have to.
You expect them to get down and dirty, but instead she goes, I got you something.
Well, they do in a way.
She brings out a candle and the works to get all shot up.
Now,
is this
implying? Is this normal for them? These people are regularly shooting heroin?
I don't know.
That's the thing, because I thought.
But he does seem like, yeah, okay.
I know, that's the thing where he's not. He's like, and he even starts like without even being. He's rolling up his sleeve, and I was going, I don't know that this guy reads as a guy who indulges in heroin.
He's a professor at NYU.
Yeah, I mean, maybe cocaine or something, but heroin's pretty serious shit, man.
Yep.
You know, when Travolta's shooting up heroin in Pulp Fiction, I'm like, yeah, he's like a low-level mobster. That adds up.
Yeah.
But like this guy, he's very button up, and then all of a sudden, like I said, drugs, whatever. But just the idea of he's like, well, time to tie it off.
And then you're like, oh, is this her way of, I don't know, like, is she gonna kill him while he's? And I guess she does in a way, or she transforms him.
Well, yeah.
But in them, I'll say this, and this is fairly effective in the movie. You're always unsure what she has really done to these people, because a lot of them we don't see again, so we don't know if did he go back to other classes until the very end.
I did kind of like that structure where we see her going, and then it's all the vampires that she's now.
Right.
Which also,
but the next morning,
vampirism in this movie, it's not like I drink your blood, you drink my thing necessarily. It seems like, boom, you're a vampire in this world.
Yeah.
You know, there must be a lot of vampires in this world, is what I think.
In the morning, she wakes up and looks dead, and he's got the weird markings on his arm with the written words "in" and "out." Two slashes across his arm. I'm like,
maybe she is putting her blood in him to make
possibly.
Him I didn't follow that exactly.
Me either.
And the movie is once
and
again,
then she's got his wallet and she's taking money out of it. So you're like, wow, so she killed him in her place. And she's just going to rob the corpse.
Until we see him again, I did think that, and I thought, fuck, man, that is even like that's real world monstrous.
Yeah.
But there is sort of that thing where, like, the movie is so vague that it is not designed for people like you and I to go like, well, now what are the rules of these vampires?
Yeah, no,
like
this
like
is
Abel Ferrara would be like, fuck you, nerd.
That is exactly what he'd say to us.
Yeah, where it is sort of that thing where, and to which I would then go, I don't know, man, you made a vampire movie. Like, you can be as pretentious as you want. You made it's. I don't know if we talked about it on here, but you and I talked about how much I loved that that Jordan Peele quote where somebody called his movies elevated horror, and he was like, no. And
he goes, that's the worst thing you can call my movies. Yeah. Elevated.
He goes, it's a genre I love, that I love contributing to, and I try to make the best versions of it. But don't place me above it. Like, I am indulging in it. And that is a guy who makes very, very smart horror movies that aren't pretentious. They are very just good pieces of filmmaking. So that's the thing, though. But with Abel Ferrara, it is like, no, you're right. It is elevated horror.
Yeah.
Also, I mean, I think he might even scoff at calling it horror.
Oh, I'm sure he would, even though it's clearly a horror film.
Yeah, I don't know what I don't know what. If it's not a horror film, then it literally is nothing.
It's a philosophical horror film.
Yeah. Oh, I bet that's what he called it.
Yep.
If he was going to call it anything, yeah. So let's see. Draws his blood, takes his money. Oh, then you get this scene. There's a short scene where she's walking down the street, and there's a group of. Because it's an Abel Ferrara movie, there's just a group of rapscallion street punks out there hanging around, and they're kind of catcalling or whatever at her and Edie Falco.
What's important is they do a callback, and it's just to show the changes that have happened to Kathy. Is that the original thing is before she's been turned, she meets the same group. And she's like, uncomfortable. Like, they're like, hey, baby. And they're catcalling. She's like, no, leave me alone. And now she's all vamped up and, like we said, aloof and way too cool. And this time, same guys. And they're like, hey, baby. Hey, shawty. And then she's like, they're like, what's your name? And she goes, what's your name?
Yeah. And she just gets like right into the guy's face.
Yeah. And he's like, oh, well, my name is this. And he's like, you want to hang out? And she's like, maybe later.
Yeah.
So now she's all confident, not scared. She's on the hunt.
Yeah, exactly. And then she's going to meet, another actress I like, sweet, innocent little Catherine Irby.
Again, so I'm used to seeing her later in her career. So this is baby Catherine Irby.
Yeah. Well, this is a couple years before this, she's in What About Bob?
That's true.
Where she's Richard Dreyfuss' daughter. But yes, I, of course, being, as we've often talked about, my great love of Law & Order, know her as Detective Eames from Law & Order Criminal Intent, where she was on for many seasons doing that. But I always liked her. She's in a childhood favorite of mine, Mighty Ducks 2. 2 is better than 1, I think.
Okay. I'm not gonna fight you on it because I have seen exactly 0 Mighty Ducks movies.
Yeah, I think you kind of had to be a '90s kid, maybe. But those were huge movies to me as a kid. Those were blockbusters. But of course, Oz is a big.
I'm sorry,
thing.
I grew up with Bad News Bears.
Yeah,
okay?
I think that's actually somewhat comparable. Yeah.
Only much filthier because Mighty Ducks is
Disney. Yeah, exactly. But the same idea of every generation's got to have their
underdog sports team.
Yeah.
Formed of losers.
But I was gonna say, certainly, I think she comes to some prominence with Oz on HBO.
Yeah.
And
no. We all know and love Catherine Irby.
She's
I
great.
just was surprised to see her so young.
And she is the like innocent victim where it's like, hey, do you want to go hang out? And she's like, I guess. And then we don't even
like Lily Taylor stalks her in the library and then strikes up a friendly conversation. It's like, you want to come back to my place because we can have coffee and talk about bullshit. And she goes, that would be great.
And then I do like this, that we don't see her get bitten. We just cut to Lily Taylor walking to the bathroom, and Catherine Irby's holding her bloody neck going like, what'd you do to me?
Yeah.
I like that. That is good. I want to see if I have the line here about because she has a very Abel Ferrara line, Lily Taylor. Here she goes. Look what you've done to me. How could you do this? Doesn't it affect you at all? No, it was your decision. Your friend Feuerbach. Is that how it's pronounced? Feuerbach?
I don't know.
Whatever. Some philosopher wrote that all men counting stars equivalent in every way to God. My indifference is not the concern here.
Oh, that line.
It's your astonishment that needs studying.
Yeah, it's your astonishment that needs study. I remember that. Wow. Yeah. Wow.
I'm just here's the thing. You don't have to watch this movie. Just read through the quotes section on IMDb and you'll get because I'm just looking, the next line is Casanova's, we are not sinners because we sin. We sin because we're sinners.
Oh man.
Yeah. Weird.
Yep.
I do think it is Walken who has the best lines. They're still kind of like that, but they're a little bit better written, and his delivery of them when we get to it.
His delivery is a champ.
Come on, I can do this all day.
Yeah, and she has now fully embraced her vampire coolness.
She's allergic to the sun. She's covered all the mirrors in her apartment. I do like that scene where she and Edie Falco, I think it is the next scene, where she and Edie Falco are walking out to go to class or whatever, and she's just like, oh God, and she gets in the set, she goes, yeah, I think I left some of them, you just go ahead.
And is the next scene where she meets Christopher Walken?
Yeah. No,
because,
sorry. No. Oh. First she bites Edie Falco when they go out.
Oh yeah, of course.
Which is actually maybe the scariest Lily Taylor is in the movie. Is just that like she's really like
feeling it.
Yeah, and it's just like, oh my God, and this is like her, as we've seen, her best friend.
Yeah, her best friend, and she does the same thing that Casanova did to her. It's like, tell me to go away, but tell me like you really mean it. And then she's like, what is with you? Why are you acting like this? And she's like, tell me to go away.
It is interesting to see Edie Falco as like this innocent woman going, oh, I don't, because I always think of her as like, fuck you, Tony Soprano, you know?
Yeah, exactly.
You know, she's not going to take things lying down, or when she's a junkie on Nurse Jackie. I guess she's not a junkie, right, but she's popping pills. And I did like that show too. But yeah, now she sees Walken, who's just, introduction of about 40 minutes, about halfway through the movie, Walken shows up and he's just walking down the street going, man.
Well, this is what's so odd.
Yeah.
He's just walking down the street. Mm-hmm. And I kind of like it because we have no idea how she has found him, but she goes up to him and this is the only person she approaches where she's not being the huntress. Instead, he just turns to her and goes, you're about to ask me to tell you to go away, or, you know, like I really mean it. So he already knows what she is, and she's stunned because he's clearly an elder vampire type. Which is, he's like I said,
the biggest disappointment is that there isn't a full movie of Walken as a vampire, because I know. I mean, the closest he gets is the Headless Horseman in Sleepy Hollow, where he does have sharp teeth, and he's creepy.
He's very creepy. Mm-hmm. But yeah, so basically she goes with him, and
I do love his line. I do love where he goes, you want to go somewhere dark?
Yeah.
Like that.
Yeah. And they go to essentially they go to artist Julian Schnabel's loft. I liked reading in the trivia. It's like all these places are, you know, it's like this was Abel Ferrara's apartment.
Yeah.
This is Julian Schnabel's loft, and you're like, of course, it's all the New York art scene. It's
I'm looking at Walken's thing because no vampires, but I will say the prophecy is getting there.
Oh, the prophecy is horrible.
It is, but I'm saying that is, and he made 3 of those fucking things. But
did he actually show up in all 3?
He sure did.
I thought he was just in like the first 2.
Nope. There he is in Prophecy 3, The Ascent.
Wow.
Playing the Archangel Gabriel. And like I said, that's getting to what I'm talking about. I just, once again, wish it was better. But I do like the scene where he sniffs her, too, when they're in the elevator. He's like,
yeah.
Like, I mean, it is sort of like 2 animals meeting. And he is closer to what we're used to vampires being, sort of gentleman vampire. And he's also a guy who's like, look, you got to cool it. You know, be careful with all the biting.
Well, yeah, he goes, you just fed, didn't you? And he also says, have you done a kid yet? Done an infant? He goes, it's weird at first. Then you realize it's just like anybody else.
Yeah, it gets easier each time.
It gets easier each time. And he says, I have been fasting. Basically, he's saying that he's taken almost like a Zen approach to.
I've got the line.
Vampirism.
Here. He goes, you know how long I've been fasting? 40 years. Last time I shut up, I had 12 and a half in one night. They fall like flies before the hunger, don't they? You can never get enough, can you? But you learn to control it. You learn, like the Tibetans, to survive on a little.
Yeah. But what's hilarious about this is, again, he's a hypocrite character because she is going to become his basically cow. Because once he gets her in the place, he's basically keeping her in his place so he can feed off of her.
Right.
And he's basically going like, oh yeah, but he also says stuff, great lines that again only Christopher Walken can pull off. Things like he goes, I defecate. He goes, what about you? When was the last time you did that?
Yeah, that's
he goes, I eat food. I have a job.
Well, she talks about because he goes, do you want some tea? And she's like, you have tea? He goes, oh, everybody can have tea.
Yeah, it's like, yeah, we drink tea, we do, and basically he's saying I've gone past and above the need to kill and drink from humans just when I want to, but I don't need to. I can pretend I'm like one of them, and he is telling her you need to be more subtle.
Actually, I take it. I said that I do like that line from the professor, but actually my favorite line is this line from Walken when she talks about what's going to happen. He says, "Read the books, Satay, Beckett, Burroughs. Who do you think they're talking about? You think the work's a fiction?" Like, I like the idea. It's like, fuck is like, we've been walking around forever, man. They're telling you about us. Everything.
He goes, you ever read Naked Lunch? Burroughs does the best explanation of a junkie coming off a fix. You're like, okay.
Mankind has striven to exist beyond good and evil from the beginning. And you know what they found? Me.
Yeah.
This is the kind of stuff where I'm like, my instinct would be to lean into, then the whole movie is about her relationship with this character or something like that. But instead, it's just like, I want so much because I'm like, oh, he's given me like villain vampire that I want.
Yeah, it's good stuff.
And
it is
like,
the best scene in the movie.
It is, because it is getting to, unfortunately, the movie then just kind of spins around like from this. It seems like it's escalating, and it escalates in a different direction, I should say.
Yeah.
But what was the other thing? I do like the entire world's a great. I mean, most of these quotes are his because he has the best lines in the movie. When she tries to cut her wrists, and he says, "You can't kill what's dead. Eternity's a long time. Get used to it."
Yeah, he's basically, because she is so miserable just being his pet.
Yeah.
That she tries to kill herself by slashing her wrist. And he goes, even if I thought you really meant it. He goes, yeah, you can't kill what's already dead. And he goes, and besides, you weren't really intending to do that. You just wanted to see if there was still any blood in your veins that you could drink yourself. That's how much of a junkie you are.
Mm-hmm.
But then we don't even see how, just like we didn't see how she met him, really, other than walking up to him on the street. We don't see how she escapes. She's suddenly just out on the street.
Yeah.
And she's in a real bad way. And then a very nice guy comes by.
Really like this, actually. This is one of the good horror beats in the movie, I think.
Yeah, it is. He's because she is literally like crawling or on the ground, and he's like, "Oh my God, are you okay?" He goes, "Listen, just hang on to me. I'm gonna get you to some help." So he's like a genuinely nice guy, picks her up like to carry her, and he goes just a couple of feet, and then she fucking right into his neck, and he is being drained while he's walking with her, and then he just takes a couple of wobbly steps and goes down.
As this guy is carrying her and she's feeding on him, and he's going to his knees and stuff. I thought
it's good.
That's legitimately creepy.
That is legitimate vampire stuff.
I like that. I like the killing.
You got me, Abel.
Yeah. I in the words of our friend Bruce Winnie over the Action Shelf, I like the killing. I like the biting.
I like the ways in which people end up dead.
Yeah.
Is that what I want to say?
Yeah. The creative ways to make a human dead is still the most disturbing thing he's ever written. That he said about,
unbelievably
I believe he was
dark.
talking about American Psycho when he talked about that too. Yeah.
Jesus.
Yeah. She and then we see her. She's satiated, I guess, from that because she's presenting her dissertation to the panel.
She apparently was able to feed enough to where she's like, not only am I back, you see her in the library, like she's writing up her paper, and then she's making her presentation, no sunglasses, and she's being totally lucid and talking about jibber jabber to the professors who are nodding.
She is defending her dissertation.
That is some effective jibber jabber.
It sure is jibber jabber. I will say, when I was in middle school, I think my mom got her doctorate, and I remember this whole process, and still I'm going like, you have to write a thing and then go in while people try to attack that thing, and you have to say no. Weird, yes. Weird process.
Yeah. Which I never had to deal with. So
thank God. I never finished college. So, I don't have a doctorate, believe it or not.
Oh.
we have a
but
a couple
they
of
do
PhDs
call you Dr. Love.
Well, yeah, but that's for whole other reasons.
Okay. All right.
So, then we cut to she's got her doctorate. Hey, everybody's like, great job, Lily Taylor. You did it. We didn't think you would, but you did it. And this is when I was like, oh shit, the professor's still alive because he's here. And it's like, oh, hello. Yes.
This is kind of great. I mean, I knew what was coming, but I'd seen the movie before, but still,
I was gonna say, yeah.
It's pretty great setup. Is like, yeah, I'm so much better now. And what's more, I'm going to invite people to a very special evening to celebrate my, getting my doctorate. So the head professor guy is like, well, of course I'll be there.
He's the dean.
He's the dean, yes.
Yeah.
And then at the party, when we get to the party, the people that we thought she killed, they're all there.
Yeah. And oh man,
including Edie Falco.
Wait.
Hold on. First, we did miss the party's going on, but she gets there a little late or something, and that's where she runs into Michael Imperioli on the street.
She's on her way into the party.
And she's
trying to get him to come in.
Yeah, she's trying to get him to come in because she's like, easy mark, I'll drain this guy. But he's like, no, thank you. That's very kind. But here's a little pamphlet about Jesus. And she gets into the party, goes immediately into the closet and freaks out, man.
Yeah.
I will not submit. And she's tearing and doing all that stuff. And then Edie Falco's like, I need to find Kathy. Where is she? And then she goes in the closet, and this is disturbing. Kathy goes, because she's torn her clothes completely. Mm-hmm. And she goes, you need to find someone out there that is basically my shape and size.
Yeah.
Because I need clothes. So Edie Falco goes out into the party, finds just a random lady at the party, and she's like, could you come with me for a second? Kathy needs some help. And goes into the closet, and they hop on her, both of them.
Yeah. And you're like, ooh. And then, once again, I like the idea of this scene. I like the visceral violence for his playing, but it doesn't, this idea that they're just this whole thing is just for them to devour everybody in this room.
Yep.
But it's a little, once again, it's not a horror movie, so the way it's portrayed is very flat, and there are aspects of it I like, but then the longer it kept going, the more I'm like, okay, like it gets
a little cheesy.
Yeah.
But at the same time, they did not scrimp on the fake blood.
No, and that's all. No, nor does he ever.
And it is all these. It's sort of cathartic. I think that's the reason it goes on so long, because it's another thing where it's almost a class commentary, because it's these very upscale intellectual types in New York society, and they were being fed upon, and you're kind of like, yeah, they deserve it.
You don't feel too bad that these. It's so interesting though that like you're gonna make a movie this pretentious and then get on people for being pretentious, high-minded people. It's a little hypocritical there, Ferreira. But then honestly, the movie probably could have ended here, and instead we get this long.
We get the point.
I know we get.
You can't end it here.
But I'm saying the denouement stuff is now where it's getting boring again, because it's like,
so essentially, this is the just like Walken's character talked about. She has indulged. Yeah. This has been like her OD. Mm-hmm. She went too far. She staggers out in the street completely drenched in blood.
Great image.
And
I mean, that's cool. And once again, what I'm looking for out of like a vampire movie is her just coated in blood.
And we get to see how nice New Yorkers are. And I will say this, my time in New Yorkers are actually pretty freaking nice.
I think they do get a bad rap. Yeah, it's always like...
They do get a bad rap. But she's immediately surrounded by a big group of people going, someone call 911. Is she okay?
Yeah. And they take her to the hospital. But I just think it's a little... yes, you get the point, but it's just like, Now we go to the hospital. Oh, he loves framing her in this bed with the crucifix behind her. God, he loves that. And you even get the close-up when the blinds are being opened of the light hitting the crucifix, and then when Annabelle Sciorra closes them and it goes back to darkness. And you're like...
Yeah, there's a nice nurse, and she says, please... Kathy says, please kill me. And she goes, oh, no, we're not going to let you die.
Yeah.
And then she goes, would you do me a favor, and would you open the blinds? Which the nurse would not know. She's trying to kill herself again. So she does open the blinds, and the sunlight's hitting her, and she's grimacing, but it's what she wants.
Can they actually die from this? Because these vampires...
We don't know. We don't know.
It seems to make them ill, but it doesn't... She doesn't burn or anything.
And it is meant to be that she is trying to hurt or kill herself.
It's the only way she knows to do that. Once again, I'm asking questions that he could care less about.
Oh, he doesn't.
Well, will these vampires actually burn? Now, what happens if you stake them?
No, it doesn't matter. This is about her absolution. This is about her being redeemed.
Yeah.
But for half a second, she imagines, because I think she's just imagining Annabelle Sciorra there.
I think so, too. Yeah.
But Annabelle Sciorra
but also it doesn't
shuts
matter.
the blinds again and basically says, like, you're a hypocrite. You're never going to get rid of what's inside you because you are sin.
Yeah, she had that line we read earlier. Yeah, whatever. It's all... This is Abel Ferrara just pontificating, and we get it, man. And then we got to put a priest in here.
Shows up.
Oh, priest! Here he comes.
Apparently, the priest guy, who is a real priest, he apparently narrated the opening, like when they're watching the documentary.
I saw that. Yeah, great. Sure. This movie doesn't. Once again, it's so philosophical that the ending doesn't have a lot of impact on me because it is just kind of going like, there you go. And I'm like, okay, I get it.
Yeah, he comes in and she asks for a blessing, and he gives her a blessing.
Yeah, and he gives her absolution. He prays over her and puts the wafer in her mouth. Oh, and then you want to talk about this last shot?
The abstract ending where we have her gravestone, which looks like it was made by people in my high school drama department.
Yeah. That's where your lack of budget is showing a little bit, Abel Ferrara.
Yeah, she is standing at her own grave, and she puts flowers on it, and she's dressed in light clothes instead of dark, and she just walks off smiling. We don't know. Is she alive? Is that her ghost? What happened?
Has she killed her sins?
And she's killed...
I don't know, man.
She says something, the last quote, I don't remember exactly, but it's something like...
Oh, wait, I have it. Hold
on. Okay.
Self-realization
leads to self-destruction or something?
Let me get
annihilation?
It here. To face what we are in the end, we stand before the light, and our true nature is revealed. Self-revelation is annihilation of self.
Yes, there it is.
Okay, I don't know. Sure. I mean, it's sort of thing where I'm going like, that's not... Yeah, that adds up with what I've seen, but it is just kind of the movie going like, And I'm going like, okay, sure.
So here's the trick. We've gone through the whole thing
pretty quickly,
and
probably our shortest episode.
and the movie itself is quite brief.
Yeah.
Would you recommend? This is an interesting one.
Yeah. No, I don't, because I think ultimately it doesn't work. Now, with I would lean towards no, with the caveat of if you are interested in this era of indie film or Abel Ferrara or these actors, then it might be worth it going in knowing. But I do think it is, like a lot of movies we talk about on here, it is flawed, and it ultimately I can't say it works, so I can't fully recommend it. No.
I'm gonna say yes.
Oh, interesting.
I'm gonna say yes, but again, your mileage may vary. You guys have all heard us talk about what is in this movie.
It is not a good genre movie by any stretch of the imagination.
No, but it does have effective moments.
It does.
And this cast,
there's a lot of good here. I do think. I just don't think it ever coheres into a solid film. There's lots of ideas, and there are mostly good ideas, and a lot of good people involved, but my ultimate is I go, it left me feeling empty.
Yes.
Even though I it's sort of going for the head over the heart kind of thing, which it definitely is, but then that often leaves me going like, okay, well, I'm not really engaging with it, and nothing's gonna linger with me other than I'll be like, oh, I saw that. It looks gorgeous. Like, you know, I mean, I'll remember the cinematography is stunning, legitimately. And there's some good performances, but yeah, I would go no, but like I said, I'm not like avoid at all costs. I just don't think it works.
All right, then.
But a movie that will definitely work, I have no doubt, is next week's film, The Howling: New Moon Rising. That's right, Brendan.
Oh, yeah.
It's back. We're finally back to The Howling.
We're finally back to good movies.
Yes.
We've been a long
We've
slog.
been so long here. Now, I will say, just beginning to do the research, as I said before about one of them that people say was the best, general consensus, this is the worst.
Wow. That is saying something.
Well, I will say Clive Turner returning as writer-director, and this time, star.
Wow.
He's playing the werewolf in this one, so...
But we also get, I think, that one actress, don't we get her back for yet another one?
We do get her
Even
back.
though she only had that little, like, cameo in the previous.
Yeah, Elizabeth Shea, who's the only acting credit she has is playing that character in Howling movies.
Wow.
That's it. Her whole career is just doing that.
That's a director who is being, loyal to his actor.
Well, and I will say the other thing to just give people a little taste, apparently this is the one where Clive tries to make the whole thing make sense continuity-wise.
I can't
This
wait.
is the one where he's going to try to make it, oh, wait, it all does work. Oh, I have a feeling this could be... I'm hoping this is the worst one, but it heads into the territory of this is where it gets gloriously, hilariously bad. That's best case scenario.
That actually, I would totally welcome.
Especially because with a higher ambition, the more likelihood of that, I feel like, is the case.
Nothing is worse than bad and boring, or just bad and just not entertaining. I am all for a batshitly bad, fun movie. So that's what I hope for too.
And like I said, it does excite me that it's like, oh, this is the one where he's going to try to make all this nonsense make sense. It can't be done. So,
that's just nuts.
So look forward to that next week on the show. That should be a fun episode. But
oh boy,
that is going to do it. Howling. Just bring that back. As long as you're going to bring other stuff back. I do like it is on the trivia. It is the only other movie that acknowledges that second Howling movie at all. So.
Oh man! By the way, John.
Yeah.
Your sister's a werewolf.
Oh no! When did this happen?
I meant to tell you.
In the cold,
I heard it from Reb Brown.
In the cold, cold night of the sun.
Oh my God!
There's a hunger that is building.
Maybe we should make that our theme song from here on out.
Howling. Oh. At least when we do Howling movies, maybe we should.
Maybe we should.
Howling.
But okay.
Yeah.
Next
Howling,
week, that's going to be painful.
New Moon Rising. Next week on the show. But that's going to do it for this week's episode of Campbell and Jones Meet the Monsters. I'm John Campbell.
I'm Brendan Jones.
And remember, there are such things as monsters.
And I believe it was Foucault who said that. Wasn't it? Or was it perhaps Sartre?